Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of request. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story, pseudo boss's attempt to diminish me and my handwriting results in her doing my manual paperwork for me. The second story, a computer corporation took our admin rights away from us, and there were bad consequences. The third story, told to dress better for a job that involves getting dirty, because a hole in my shirt leads me to dress up too nicely to do my job. Today's first story is, you abhor my calligraphy? Oh gosh, thank you so much for doing my paperwork. I work for one of the most boring museums within the most touristically overrated piece of Spanish land. My job is security and service assistant, which is the fancy resume hype fodder way to say I'm one of the people that intermittently stands still in a corner and wanders around to make sure no one touches anything, and to sporadically answer where's the bathroom, among other minutiae. Such minutiae includes writing down in a file by hand any incidences of any kind, and the time they took place, like when we started or end our shift. At 14:51 we call out a visitor because they touched X. Anything you can imagine. We work in a team of many similar assistants, and a coordinator which strictly speaking is the very same, but works more hours and has a few extra duties, which as per policy and our actual boss's word, she's not our boss, only does the same as us, plus gives aid in coordination reliance stuff, such as managing schedules to avoid incompatibilities. However, she and her husband, who happens to be 2 steps below the CEO of this security company, likes to act like and believe otherwise, granting her the antagonism of this story. Despite her gender, I will refer to her as Bob, as her head carries the exact same hairstyle of SciShowed Bob from The Simpsons, down to the color, even if less vibrant. I've been working here months before Bob, and when she started, already hated my guts and behaved like she knew how to do the job better than me, despite the time difference and many negligences from her side in a job so easy and simple that for one to frick up you pretty much have to do it on purpose. This resulted in tons of childish beef and harassment from her side that's ongoing still to this day, years later, down to having committed stuff that should have gotten her fired. Yet our higher-ups for some mysterious reason happen to be much more tolerant towards her antics than any other's negligences. She felt the need to remark that I made God angry, right before berating me as she hypocritically sinned about not loving thy neighbor. During these years, she kept looking for ways to undermine my morale and any atom of error from my side to get me fired. Turns out I'm so good at my job she had to try lying once. Incidents not worth narrating for the purposes of this post. The museum considers me vital as I'm the only one that knows English to a conversational level within the assistants, and she's not my true boss anyway. Bob can't fire me herself. She kept micromanaging, disrespecting, and committing other annoyances and negligences there as years passed, sometimes bordering the illegal. During this last month and a half, my hand has been more faulty than usual, and I accidentally provoked scribbles within our file, crossing out words I wrote wrong like "we clad O2" instead of "called out" or whatever. All of us got to do that because our file has some sort of cool paper below each regular paper that copies what's been written in the top one. Security companies use these to avoid any mischievous shenanigan, and consequently the usage of Tipp-Ex like white tape is forbidden, as would make the copy confusing. Bob took notice of this and proceeded to insult me in my doctor prescription tier penmanship, calling me useless, saying I was doing it on purpose, and that one should be a professional and keep these things as clean as possible, even though both my chronic tremors in my hand and my dysgraphia worsened by the former plus stress. That is simply not possible for me. So she ripped out the file, started a new one, and she copied what the previous one had written, by herself, threw the older one to the garbage, and later asked the rest of the team to put their signatures in again. Only thing each person has to do individually no matter what for obvious reasons, because Blazinter writes like an effing toddler. The team didn't react too well, but closer to an alright then, as they were very well aware of my infamous calligraphy. The same happened more than a handful of times during this period, which prompted me to suggest that I could simply write what's strictly obligatory from my side, signature and name, and tell her to write for me any incident I would have originally written by myself. Bob didn't react with excessive serenity, and apparently that summoned her imaginary cartoon light bulb on top of her super hairy head, as she phoned our actual boss to talk about this ongoing matter. Instead of just giving a simple response, she'd come by to judge better. Our boss likes to come by herself on whatever, as much times as possible, as this leaves less incidents in written, giving her more leeway for manipulation. Bob isn't the only unfavorable person within the company. Finally, true boss comes after finding room in her tight schedule, and we both described to her the situation at hand, and even are able to show some examples. Without bothering to think much, made my day with her words. I agree with you, Bob, but also with Blazinter. We should keep these as clean as possible, and he's unfortunately clinically unable to do reliably keep it that way. As coordinator of this team, you and only you should be trusted for this. And so our new way to do the manual paperwork was put in place. I would have to get the walkie-talkie, and Bob, whenever you could be able to, please write down 1110 visitor accidentally stained the floor. Thanks. Bob, I'm taking my rest. Remember to note it and its duration down. Thank you. She attempted to ask other coworkers to write the stuff, but they rightfully complained, quoting the words of our actual boss. You and only you should be trusted for this, and even attempted to apologize and say my writing wasn't that bad, but our boss also agreed on it being bad and provoking unwanted messes. So, it isn't much, but for once during this almost half a decade working here, finally I, or better said her sole self, was the one that managed to put a minor yet constant annoyance to her job, instead of the opposite. Not much of any sort of big-scale fallout like most stories on this sub, aside of her hating me gradually more. But she already was doing that by herself anyways, so I just relish on victory finally and nicely. I guess I should include that she requested a medical file to prove and verify that I suffered dysgraphia and wasn't faking this to annoy her. Shouldn't suppose much problem, but hey, free paid day to go to the doctor. Edit. Answering a common question. Can Bob really ask for medical files of mine? No, but she can ask and suggest the pertinent higher-up to ask for that, and I'd only send it to HR. Now she has a new responsibility and less work for you. Congratulations, haha. If I were her, I would just keep working and not bother you. But she had other plans, so she got what she deserved. I hope she continues to dig herself a hole until she gets so mad she leaves the company. She doesn't deserve to work there with you. You said she can't get fired, but I think once management changes or the place is sold, she loses her job, etc. She will almost certainly get much worse, unless she swallows her pride and leaves for a smaller job, doing something she probably hates. Likewise, if you can get a record or proof that they're harassing you, that would be a good evidence for a lawsuit. I can also advise you to change jobs. Maybe there are other museums you could work at instead. With so many unpleasant people in management, it's only a matter of time before something bad happens because of their antics. Plus, if you're their only interpreter, they'll rethink the way you've been treated. I like your description of Bob's hair. It's probably the most well-written funny MC I've ever seen. The next story is, remove our admin permissions. We will wait for the grief to come pouring down from above. This happened about 20 years ago as I was starting my IT career. The organization I was working for was an early adopter and had just rolled out Windows 2000, and delegated control was still a good idea, a long way off being implemented. It was discussed making this happen by the sysadmins, but not implemented to allow the help desk to have granulated permissions, but this had not been worked out yet. I was still on the help desk and worked with Alec. Alec had been around since I think Noah was building the Ark, and possibly handed him the hammer when needed, so Alec knew everyone and had interesting stories to tell. If Alec is on here, he can tell his own stories. The computer corporation that the organization had hired to manage second and third level escalations above help desk decided that the lowly help desk peons, Alec and I, could not have domain administration permissions anymore, as we were doing the work and taking cases off them. That meant they could not justify as many man-hours they were charging our organization. So on Wednesday night, our accounts are removed from the elevated permissions, without notifying us. Possibly our managers were notified, but not what the implications were. Here comes the compliance. See, all we could do now was catch and dispatch, nothing else. Simply take the call and log it into the help desk system, saying someone needed their account unlocked to be able to work. Someone else wanted to change their password, as they had forgotten their password, and another person needed access to a specific folder on the file server /s. This is all run-of-the-mill level 1 tasks that take seconds to complete. However, not this Thursday. See, the computer corporation that day needed to do their weekly team building meeting that I was not privy to. Not working for them, however, I'm sure they were told how much extra money they would be making doing all these extra cases. Alex started after me, as he had then had a later finish, so I explained our lack of access now, and that we would have to simply catch and dispatch calls now, with the computer corporation doing all the work. This is boring and what gives help desk roles a really bad name. Alec wanted to go to our manager to get this changed immediately. However, I convinced him to comply with the corporation's dictate. We would allow the people directly affected by not being able to work to complain to their managers. Then they would complain to ours, so we don't look like we're being difficult to the computer corporation's new stance, whom we had to go along with. Oh yeah, they did complain. The manager for Computer Corporation got hauled out of their team meeting to fix things up, so we could do our work and our colleagues could then do theirs. When their manager asked why we did not say these cases were backing up, we replied we could not change or unlock passwords, and they were busy in their meeting, and we were asked previously not to disturb them. We missed 2 working days in order to restore everything. We did get our admin rights back. Also, now things are massively changed, and domain admin rights are not handed out so fast. But this was early days of Windows 2000. Alec, you magnificent bee. Hope you're still kicking goals, and this brings back memories. Oh man, this situation is so familiar to me. I can't understand what they're thinking when they do something like that, and why they don't consider all the risks and consequences. When I started working as the IT guy for a school, they were very slow to give me admin rights, which directly impacted my ability to solve people's problems. A couple weeks in, I was asked by the head of technology distribution why I kept reassigning work orders. I said it was because I couldn't fix the problem. He said I was hired under the pretense that I had the knowledge to handle tasks like this. And I replied that I had the knowledge, just not the ability. I then pulled up the 16-day-old work order to give me admin access for my campus and showed it to him. I had access within the hour. Luckily, I didn't work there for long. After 4 months, I found a better job with a better salary and left that place. The last story is told to dress better for a job that requires getting dirty. Okay, here's a bit of background. I've worked in construction and service for 15 years. I recently gave up that career for a job in special effects for TV and movies. Last year, I started a production with people I've worked with in the past. I'm a known quantity, and my smart A attitude usually precedes me. This production, which isn't out yet so the details will be sparse, is mostly set on a train. This set has to wag, shake, and wiggle like a real train would, so we built heavy teeter-totters on wheels. All heavy-gauge steel casters and bearings. Now these gimbals, common name for a motion platform, have a tendency to make noise, which as you would imagine would affect production. So one of my jobs was to crawl under the set on a concrete floor and grease joints, tighten the bolts, etc. Safety checks were daily. This usually left me somewhat dusty and dirty throughout the day. Typically I'd be wearing Carhartt pants and shirt. Both black, of course. Gotta stay hidden in the dark as much as possible. Most film departments that have to do something physical quite often wear black on black, so anything else is abnormal. This is where we lead into my MC. One day I got a small hole in my shirt, just a little smaller than a dime right on the front. So the first assistant, friend of mine that I've worked with before, says I really need to dress better, as there should be an image we should attain. I just look at him unbelievingly for a second, and he re-insists. So I agree. I usually agree to things immediately to keep drama down in the workplace. I immediately know what I'm gonna do for the rest of this week. This was on a Tuesday. The next day I show up in my best dress clothes. Shirt, tie, dress pants, and dress shoes. Completely 100% wholly overdressed. Nobody dresses for a wedding in any film department, unless it's a theme day, like Tropical Shirt Friday. Dressed like this, I cannot do my job, so I just direct coworkers on how to do it. I spent the next 3 days dressing like that until the SPFX coordinator mentioned that maybe I should dress down now, as I had made my point. I also got a lot of compliments from more than a few people, and every couple of Fridays, people would come in with suits for formal Fridays. It was nice not getting my hands dirty, but spending close to 50 hours with a tie and dress shoes is something I'd like to avoid for a while. I understand you. I'm a department manager, and I work on a lot of large construction projects. I'm also a woman. At one point, I was asked to dress more professionally, even though I could wear strict clothes with boots between meetings while going through active work areas. I wore a dress and stiletto shoes for about a week, and everyone pretty quickly got tired of waiting for me to change into appropriate safety-conscious clothing several times a day. Subscribe, hit the like button, and have a good day.